Okay, I'm here with Jessica. She is a good friend of mine. We are both in the Reach program, and we enjoy um, just getting together and sharing some of our sames and some of our difference with the men's group. And that's how we met through Reach program, which is based as drug and alcohol, but it goes way deeper than that. It's
Absolutely.
a human experience, and that's what we're trying to kind of relate to. So Jessica has agreed to meet me here and kind of tell us about her human experience and kind of what goes on there. So, Jessica, welcome. I know this is
Hi.
new and different, and I'm glad to have you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
I've
Oh, I'm
heard
glad
just
to
a
be here.
tad bit of your story, and that was only yesterday. Yesterday,
Yeah,
so I'm excited. So you can start wherever you would like, and you can end wherever you like. This is all about knowing that everybody has their own story and how it can help others.
absolutely. My name's Jessica. I'm 53 as of yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I guess I could start at the beginning. I'm one of four children, three girls and a boy. I was the second one born. I think that makes a big difference where you're at in that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great childhood. I had two great parents that were married. They were married till they died. And I guess they're eternally married. They had their issues. We were never saw their issues. We
Right.
never knew we were poor. They provided. Dad did what he had to do. He was in the Air Force, um, so he instilled some of those values in us on Saturday mornings when he got us up at 6:30 in the morning, and we had to clean baseboards and clean out the silverware drawer. It went deeper than just vacuuming the floor.
Right.
But I carry that with me. So he left a legacy. Dad was pretty strong and hard. I mean, he was the nurturer, even though it's kind of hard to believe. Like, and I didn't find that out till later on in life that he was the nurturer out of the two parents. But I was the one that was supposed to be a boy. My sister was born first. We're like all pretty much 2 years apart. Um, so I was supposed to be the boy, and I wasn't. But I was a tomboy. So he coached all my ball teams. He was a dad. I remember when we were little, very vaguely, that he worked at Kroger. Because when he got out of the army, he was like the dude that he started the computer. He did the C dot or colon slash, that kind of, the Wang computers. He was a computer. He worked on airplanes. He fixed the computers in the airplanes during Vietnam, all that good stuff. So anyway, when he got out of the army, he started working with IBM, GTE, all those old computer places. So he would take me to work with him because I was a kid with, I guess, ADHD. They didn't call it that back then, but I was the hyper bad kid of all four of us or whatever. The one that was always getting in trouble and mom couldn't handle, so I enjoyed that. I got to go to work with him all the time. So, and see all these huge, like, now they're tiny little microchips,
They
but
were as
now it's
big
like,
as this room,
yeah, with toggle
and
switches
then
and
now they're
red lights.
this.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, so I grew up. We always had a computer room in our basement or whatever, and that's where he worked on computers on the side. I'm pretty sure uh, he had that criminal mentality because he would like parts back then. He would just bring them home. It was probably stealing. I don't, at one point I remember probably as a teenager he worked at GE, and I guess they pile up all their extra computer crap or whatever people think went bad. And he would come backing in with the van with the garage door,
My gosh.
shut the garage door, unload it, and then go back to work type thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think he thought he was a criminal, but
They were throwing it away
yeah,
and couldn't give it away.
right,
Yeah.
type stuff. So he built computers. That's how we had Christmases. I'm sure of it now. I didn't know it. He didn't tell us that, but
Right.
so anyway, I grew up pretty normal. But when you get in high school, he got transferred about every 4 years, so we lived in different places in Kentucky. But I know when I landed in fifth grade and we moved to Bullitt County, they tried to transfer me like a couple years later. Mom was like, "No, these little girls are just the first three of us were girls. The girls are, getting in middle school. We're not moving anymore. They need to
Mm-hmm.
be settled. They need to be, have friends, long lasting relationships and stuff." So we stayed, and he started working out of town and coming home on weekends. So I think part of that is I kind of lost a little bit of my sense of love and belonging then because my daddy was gone, and it was it was always, mom, how she wait till your dad gets home type stuff. She didn't really handle it. She was just she kind of had him handle it. So that's a little bit of, kind of, I think.
And how did he usually handle it?
Oh, we got the belt or grounded. We never knew which until it happened, so we had to prepare for both.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, but his father was a severe alcoholic. He died. My dad's younger brother, my grandpa died while he was kind of sitting on top of him, taking his money out of his pockets because my grandma, he worked at the railroad, so when he got drunk and came home or whatever, when he passed out, she would always have one of the kids empty his pockets so they would still have money to get by on. So I heard little stories like that as we grew up too.
Mm.
But my grandma died when I was 13, so I just there's some of these memories may or may not be complete,
Yeah, no, I got you.
but so that's my mom's dad was a severe alcoholic as well. She was born in Kansas, and I think this stuff matters. I think where we came from matters. When we try to kind of dissect the reason why I ended up where I was or whatever.
Yeah,
So and
it's not necessarily genetics, is what I
yeah,
think. I think it's more of a culture over
oh,
generations
absolutely.
and how we perceive
Uh,
alcoholism or
and
we
how we
perceive it.
react to things.
That's right.
Absolutely. But mom, um, later in life as well, I went to prison, so this has been, just probably in the last 10 years. Mom had a mom and dad. He was an alcoholic. That back then they didn't look at things the way they look at them now, but he provided, but he all the rest of the time he was drunk. They worked, they stayed drunk, but her mother got real sick after she had her little sister Lois, who was born with a whole lot of heart conditions, and so they knew she was going to die. So he didn't want them. That's what mom always said. I don't know if I'd put it that way, but that's the way she looked at it.
This is your mom's dad.
My mom's dad, he was like, "Well, I can't take care of them." So the lady my mom's real mom that died, her name was Mabel. They, when she died, they sent my mom here to her brother's house. So actually, my mom's uncle and his wife married or took care. They raised her. So my mom always, now looking back, had a sense of abandonment.
Right.
Like she dealt with a lot of she felt abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
So her real dad,
Again, the love and belonging.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that ties into that love and belonging type thing. So and it ties into her not being so much of a nurturer.
Mm-hmm.
She did not know how, like, because my
Right.
grandfather and his wife, or her uncle or whatever, and his wife, she called them mom and dad because they were from 5 years old. But I remember when my mom was dying, her cousin from Kansas, they grew up a little bit when they were little kids. But she told me a story about mom, and coming home on the train with the coffin and the hope coming back to Kentucky with Mabel and all that. And she was like, they were two little 5-year-old girls standing outside the train station. They had got off the train, and um, she said that this lady walked up and said, "Girls, what are you doing here? Where's your parents? Well, what are you doing here?" And she said my mom held her arm up and said, "We're waiting for my mommy." And the lady looked
Mm.
over and saw the coffin. So that's impacted me over the last few years. I didn't really know a lot of her family from Kansas until probably later in my mom's life or whatever. But anyway, my dad, he was a good dad. Mom was a good mom. She did the best she could, and they were, I mean, you wouldn't know. Um, we grew up in a really nice neighborhood, so there was the bike riding and the going in the woods and the
Yes.
be home at dark when the lights come on. I was never home when the lights came on. It was like, oh, I think part of it was my ADHD or whatever. But I mean, I remember getting my butt busted all the way. He'd come find me, or I'd come in at dinner, everybody be sitting around the table. I was always the one in trouble. So, I got in high school. I dated a guy in the football team. It was, he was the popular one. I went to all the games, whatever. Found it, as it progressed, he did sell pot. I never really partook in it. I never really knew it, really. I guess I was a little bit, I just didn't pay attention. If I didn't want to know, I didn't know or whatever. But I remember going to parties where people were drinking, and I didn't really like it a whole lot. I remember trying it, smoke a joint. Didn't really like how it made me feel or whatever. But I belonged to something. It was like
Mm.
I was part of the cool
Right.
people. So, but me and him broke up, and it was kind of a mom and dad thing saying, "You're going to break up with this boy or else" type thing. So, all that went down, and within a few months, I was pregnant by this guy that was like 7 years older than me,
A different guy.
a different guy.
And you were how old?
16. I had Justin in 1986. I graduated in 87. So, well,
Of
I
course
didn't really graduate.
Of course, you named a Justin around 84 to 86 because I went to school with 19 of them.
Yeah, yeah. Justin or Dustin was a
Right.
lot of their names. Yeah.
Okay.
So Justin Cody was born in '86. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. But a tribe raised him. I was a young mother, but I remember my mom having talks to me saying, "You're gonna raise this baby." My sister, a year prior, my older sister had gotten pregnant and gave her baby up for adoption.
And she's 2 years older than you.
So she's 55 now. But anyway, uh, and that impacted our family a lot more than we realized. So, um, his name is Nathan. She didn't name him. She stayed in the hospital with him until the adopted parents. She signed the papers. The adopted parents picked him up. So, I remember what he looked like. I remember the day he was born. I remember all the good
Wow.
stuff. So when he turned 18, he found us,
Good.
and we're not really close. He lives in Arizona with a wife and and Chloe, my niece, but um, but we do know him, you know. So he had two great parents that love him. So he's got a whole family, and everything was okay. So she didn't choose to abort him, or she was so scared. I think to say she was like 6 months before they found out she was pregnant. So anyway, so I had a baby. Of course, we were raised Catholic, so my mom was like, "You're gonna give this baby up," and I was like, "No, I'm not." And I remember at some point my sister coming to me and saying, "If I'd had known about all the resources, I would have kept Nathan." So
Mm.
I think that's a dynamic. When I get further into the story, it impacted it. But 16, is a not a good age to have a kid, but I did, and which attached me to this toxic man. He was already an alcoholic, so I was in and out of that relationship for probably 7 years.
This is the father of the.
I
Of,
married him. I was gonna marry him. You know, mom, dad couldn't stand him. He was abusive. He started being abusive. He hit me a lot. Whatever. I walked back and forth to work every day to support. I always supported my child. But I was in this toxic whirlwind. After 7 years of that, I had my daughter by then. I had a daughter 5 years later. I lost a lot of babies in between. So I went through some of them I had to give birth to. It was
mm,
I wasn't doing drugs then. I was in church then, and in his family's church, I did everything he wanted me to do. So
that's traumatic.
yeah, my mom tried to get me to leave everybody, but until one day something clicked, and I just was like, I'm out.
How old was your son then?
5.
5.
Yeah, and I think it was when he came in drunk one night and was like hitting the walls around me, and all this drywall was over the place, and I looked over, my son was standing there, and I know he heard it a lot anyway. But I think that I married the guy, but when he turned to look at him, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna hurt him. I think that's what switched. That's when the switch.
See, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and you've said 2 5-year-old girls in your story so far, and then you said your 5-year-old son. So
Yeah,
I'm just picturing my daughter, and I'm like, wow.
yeah. So yeah, I remember like it was like 10 minutes before it was time for him to be home from work, and he had progressed from beer to whiskey, or whiskey and beer. And I remember I worked at Dairy Queen up the road, and I remember the lady next door used to babysit, and she called me. She's like, he came and got the kids and took them. I know he took them home with him and stuff, but he just left, and I know he didn't take kids with him. So I came home that day. So that's kind of like a series of events that happened before I left him. I came
So he
home,
left the house.
and both the kids were home. I left work and came home, and both the kids were home.
How old were the kids?
Danielle wasn't even a year old because I left him when she
Right.
was a year old. So she was a baby. So yeah, that's just what we deal. It's when we're not ready, we're not ready. But so I got out of that relationship within months. I moved back home with my parents, which I'd been in and out for years anyway, and met a guy from high school. I didn't really know him a lot in high school, but I got a job. I got like 2 jobs because I've always worked regardless, but I got a job at an auto repair place, and he was a well-known drug addict, I guess, and he suffered from manic depressive disorder. And I didn't realize this till then, but he was pretty manic. A lot of it I think was drug induced, but he busted a line out back in the parts area in the back room, and he was like, You've done cocaine before, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." First line of cocaine. That was really the first time I did something and thought,
And
"Damn."
how old are you now?
I'm 53 now, and
Well, I'm talking about in the
then
story. I'm caught up in the
I'm
story.
trying to think. Danielle was about 16 months old, so that would have put me at about um
21.
yeah 22, something like that.
Mhm.
23, yeah.
All right.
So it was on then. We were doing cocaine or whatever. He smoked pot. He did whatever. wasn't a whole lot of pain pills and stuff like. But back then there was a pep tab, so there was speed. You could buy speed at the pep tab, back then. So that's what we did. But he also loved the Grateful Dead. We was Deadheads. We followed the Grateful Dead a lot, so we did a lot of acid,
Hmm.
uh, nitrous oxide, huff nitrous oxide, all that good stuff for that period in the '90s, early '90s, all the way till probably '97. I was a CNA as well, and had worked. I was working. I was taking care of the cocaine habit because I worked all the time. So I
Hmm.
was a server at O'Charlie's, and I was a CNA and worked out in Mount Washington at a senior living center. And there's some girls out there, and I started doing crank because you stay awake longer with less, that type thing. It was more bang for your buck. That's what I went for. I liked it better,
Now,
whatever.
excuse my ignorance, but what is crank?
Crank was meth
Oh, okay.
back then.
I got you.
Yeah, it's a biker, kind of a biker term, whatever. But so it was just progressing. I'd do a couple lines. I could work an extra shift, whatever. I liked that I was a better mom. I thought,
Right.
I could do more, get more done. House could be clean, and I could work, whatever. That kind of stuff. So, um, and that went on for years. My daughter and my son, he would put him on the bus for me because I worked all the time. He was got disability, so he was always home. And you know, after a few years of that, like my family room was never a family room. It was always people there getting high and smoking pot, and my kids were around, and it was almost like it was a normal thing. And and I knew, somewhere in me, I knew it was all wrong, and there were lots of bells and whistles and flags, red flags, and all that good stuff, but I ignored it. But my mom called me one day and was like, "Listen, your grandfather's getting so bad." Dad was living in St. Louis, and back up a little bit. Our house burned down that I grew up in. My brother blew it up working on a car, but so my mom was like done. We had all moved out. My brother was going finishing high school and moving on to college, and so they sold it to my sister. So my older sister and her husband ended up at this house. They had two kids. So um, I moved to Meade County to take care of my grandfather, and that's where the meth really got bad. Like I met Cooks, that's where I met. He's my husband now, but there's two or three guys I ran with out there, and I still would let Rob in, the guy Rob that I was living with before, come and visit. But as he loved my kids, he had my kids. They'd been around him for like 5 or 6 years. So, and at that point, their dad wasn't in the picture, so I would let him come out. And anyway, it progressed, and I burned bridges, and I pissed my mom and dad off quite often. They didn't know what to do with me. That's when the addiction was bad, and when your family's like, "What do we do?" They didn't know what to do. I'm sure the
No,
family
definitely.
was talking, but not around me.
Right.
I thought nobody knew and everybody knew type thing. But um,
So from the first time that you tried the first line of cocaine was around 21, 22. Where are we at now? Like,
now I'm at night, probably we're getting ready to roll into about. I moved out there in '97. Grandpa died, and I got a job at the nursing home and worked there and met the real good meth users, I would say. I don't know, but
the real
so
terrible,
yeah,
real
yeah.
horrendous.
Now we're in the country and we can go anywhere and drive around anywhere and
Hmm.
everywhere, and everybody's got farms and there's always a place to
What is that?
party.
Is that 30? Is
I'm hitting 30,
okay.
so I meet a guy named Edward Brown, which everybody called him Pud. A lot of fun. A lot of river. He liked the river. He liked arrowhead hunting, all that good stuff. I ran with him for a while. I'd already met Donnie, who's my husband now.
Hmm.
I'd already met him, but it was in and out. He was in and out of jail because of child support and stuff was sending him back to jail a lot back then. So, you know, I met Pud. I ran with him for about a year, and he turned up missing. Um, and I remember seeing him driving by, and he was like, what's up, whatever. And he was like, I'm going down to Arrowhead to hunt and fish for the weekend or what. He had like a bus sitting on. It's a place called Flint Island. It's a pretty well known place in Meade and Brett County, on the river. But anyway, he had a bus down there, and he went down there for the weekend. It was in January. I thought this dude's crazy. He's middle of the winter, and he's going to go down here and whatever. But I know now that he felt displaced too because he come home. His sisters, he had a brother that died. Sisters had complained about him, so he would go home and see his mom long enough and then roll out, and or maybe sleep for a couple days and go back. He was bad on meth. He was, he used a needle, all that. I remember stopping at a pond and him uh, drawing up enough pond water so he can shoot up. I mean, he didn't care about much, but he's kind of like
So explain that to
he's
me.
kind of like
Why?
Huck Finn on meth. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
He wore bib
Yes.
overalls. He was a logger. He worked for money, but he spent it too. That type thing. So
Why did he need pond water to shoot
because he
up?
didn't have anything else, we were in the country driving down old country road. He said, "Pull over, pull over."
He did it because he needed that habit taken
I
care of.
guess, yeah.
Wow.
It freaked me out because I didn't do that. Like I did a line every now and then, but like I wasn't now I know it was pretty extreme. Like I just I don't know. I just didn't pay attention to it. It's like whatever, whatever. I was having fun on a couple lines.
Right.
I guess he needed a fix, but I don't know. I just thought, oh, you're crazy, crazy.
Right.
But anyway, so anyway, January 30th, he disappeared, or he didn't come home that weekend or whatever, and people started looking for him. Nobody could find him. And so we got in four wheelers and went down to where his bus was, and his dog, which he had a dog. He was a country guy. He didn't keep dogs in the house. The dog didn't come in the bus. The dog was locked, like the bus was locked up, and the dog was in there. And I don't know if whatever happened to him, whatever somebody was doing to him, they put the dog in there because he wouldn't hurt, because that dog probably would hurt somebody. But they kind of made it look like people, when they went down there and searched, it was like, I think what happened, I'm pretty sure what happened was they shot him because he had like a little boat that he would row, like a rower boat or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And he would row out to the other side on the Indiana side and hunt too. And they built a couple fires. They made it, they kind of staged it. So I think they shot him there, and the dog seen it, and they put him in the boat and kind of shoved it off into the river. And so he on his death certificate he drowned, but he was missing for 159 days. And during that, within weeks of that, I found out I was pregnant. So I was pregnant with Gabriel. That was probably the darkest time in my life, and um, I don't remember a lot of it. I blacked a lot of it out. But I do remember my mom coming down because I lived on the farm. My grandparents had like a underground type of house, in the ground house, because the tornado,
Mm-hmm.
74 tornado, come through there and took their whole house, killed they had a foster daughter that killed her when I was 4. So
My gosh.
they had built like a half story on. It was like a little bed for stone. So when my grandfather died, my mom ripped that top story off and put 2 floors on and wraparound porches. It was just a beautiful farm. But I lived in that where my grandfather. It was like an apartment down there in that basement. So that's where I kind of stayed. I lived, and But anyway, I remember my mom coming down there and ripping the covers, saying, "I'm going to Walmart and you're going with me. Get up out of the bed." They didn't know I was pregnant. Nobody really. I kept kind of. I was in the denial or whatever. I was still using. I used the entire time I was pregnant with this child. I can say that now, but thank God he was okay. But when I was about 6 months pregnant, so it was April 29th of 2000. My son, I left. Somebody came over and wanted to know where so and so was. Come on, we need to go to so and so's house. They was wanting drugs, and I was like, I don't know. And I remember Donnie being there and him, because he was on probation, so he was clean. He was like, "Girl, man, don't go." And he went home because he had a mom to take care of
So
too.
Donnie is your husband
Uh
now,
huh.
and he was gone during
He's in and
prison.
out, in and out. Yeah, he got out of jail and was
Were you
around.
married to him then?
Mm-mm. No,
Okay,
so we're technically not married now. So,
I got you.
but anyway, I've been with him forever. But anyway, he was in and out then, but he had just got out of jail like within weeks of this happening. But he's like, "Girl, don't do it. Don't go with her." This girl was well known. She was trouble. She would steal your toilet paper out of your house. She was uh, pretty deep into addiction. But I went with her and left the house at like 1 o'clock in the morning and left my kids downstairs. My mom was upstairs. I think I told her I was leaving. Honestly, I don't know. I may not have. Um, but my son when I opened the door and told him I'd be right back, he was probably about 13, 12. And I was like, "I'll be back in a little bit, whatever." And I said, "Your room's a mess. You need to get your room cleaned up." He had like a candle, like one of those stick candles, like you see in a you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Had it stuck like on a lid of a pickle jar or something. And it was burning. It was like on top of his stereo, I guess. And I said, "You need to blow that candle out." And he blew it out. And then I left. And that's really all I remember till like 4 in the morning. Somebody called the person I was with, and they were like, "Okay, okay, okay, well, okay." And they hung up. They didn't want to tell me. I get almost all the way home. They leave, like, I can tell something's going on. We come over a small hill to my house, and there's fire trucks, ambulances covering my mom's farm, the front area of my mom's farm. I'm like, "Oh my god." I remember being so I was frozen. I couldn't get out of the truck. I was like, "What the hell?" My son had lit that candle, and downstairs was paneling, and it was like crawling up the wall, and he couldn't put it out. My daughter woke up because of the smoke, so he put her outside. They had two little baby ducks. I remember the duck, but he put her outside. I was like, "Don't tell nobody." And he kept going back in, trying to. And every time he tried to go back in, that storm door would fan, fan it, and fan it. So by this time, my mom's awake because the dogs are yipping upstairs, and my little sister had moved in the third floor because she was getting divorced. So it was just, and my daughter ran next door, which is like probably 3 acres over to the neighbors, and the lady's like, "Do you need a hug?" She called fire department. "Do you need a hug?" And Daniel said all she could say is no. She had her duck under her shirt. She's like, "Don't squish my duck,"
Mhm.
but he didn't want to tell anybody, so the house burnt to the whole house burnt,
But
and
everybody got out.
everybody got out.
Thank goodness.
My son's hair was singed, and they had him on oxygen.
Mhm.
So that weighs on me. That's one of my I have to deal with that. And I do, and everybody was fine, and I'm very lucky. I was very lucky that everybody was okay. Um, I will, I that I but that trend of not being present in my with my kids, I was around, but I honestly don't remember my addiction like leaving them. I don't know how long I was gone. It could have been
Mhm.
days. It could have been hours. I think it probably was both at different times, but um, so at that point, after the house burnt down, mom called dad. Come home. House burnt down. We tried to salvage. Donnie was around. We tried to salvage what we could out of the house, cabinets, and because she had like the Amish built this house, it was a beautiful house. Um, he got a little trailer and put it next door so we could start building it. They had to tear it all the way down and then build it back, but and they did that. But they found out I was pregnant. Then that's when they found out I was pregnant, and my dad was like, "I would have got a bigger trailer if I'd have known you were having another kid because it was a 2 bedroom trailer." So at that point, they was pretty much living in St. Louis, and I was staying there. They still trusted me to stay there, even though they were going to build that house.
Now, were they aware that you were addicted,
Oh, they
fully
were.
addicted?
I know they were aware. Yeah, they were aware.
Mhm.
I mean, I was doing crazy. Stuff was missing.
Yeah.
People I was allowing in. I didn't necessarily steal from them, but people I was allowing in were taking God knows what.
Right.
And this was that was missing, and I was always getting yelled at about it. And I was like, damn, they took. Um, that's just how it progressed. But um, I had Gabriel on. Well, we found his dad's body. They found his body July 3rd, that 4th of July weekend, down in Stephensport. It was like where the river bent. I guess the river was real high that year, and it had came down enough that somebody found his body in a brush pile or whatever, where it had all gathered. They found him and identified him. There wasn't much left of him, but we buried him on July 8th. They cremated him and put him in his brother's grave because he had a brother that died too, which I think is a big, huge reason why he was the way he was.
Mhm.
He lost a brother. His brother was 21 and he was 14. So um, we buried him, and I had Gabriel on July 22nd, which was the grandma's birthday on the dad's mom. I had him on her birthday. So she called him her birthday buddy because they didn't, everybody in town. I remember going to the funeral like 9 months pregnant. Everybody was like, "That's not his baby." He couldn't have. His mom had said he couldn't have kids, and that was a lot of reason for his depression and reasons why he didn't care about a whole lot because he couldn't have kids. He wanted that family.
But
He
you're certain it's his.
absolutely. So they had him test. They made sure they tested. They
Mhm.
tested grandma, grandpa, and him and me. And it took back then it took 5 months to get the results back from that
Right.
because they did the DNA testing. So yes, he looked just like him. He's
Yeah.
got his beady eyes and all that. But so they were very attached. Uh, by the time he was, I honestly don't know why they let me bring him home from the hospital. When I went in labor with this kid, he was breech, which I didn't know because I never went to the doctor. Never. I mean,
Never.
when I went in labor, it was like it came on full force, like no other. I had to get a ride to the hospital. Donnie stayed there with my kids, and um, I remember coming through the doors at Hardin County Memorial and them saying, "When are you due?" And I was like, "I guess right now." I mean, that's
Yeah.
where I was in life.
Right.
And I remember them putting a mask over me saying, "We have to take the baby right now." And, so they cut me. up and down, like they did a C-section, but it was like up and down instead of side to side or whatever. I don't remember a whole lot. After they were like, what have you been taking?" And I was like, "Just meth and marijuana." That's all I could. That's all I could say before they put me out. And Gabriel was healthy, thank God. And They sent him home with me.
Dang.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
This was in 2000.
And
So
let me just stop you right there.
okay.
And because I know now in the REACH program that you're the peer support specialist. Is that your official name?
Adult peer support specialist.
Okay. So you see this a lot now?
Uh-huh. No, as far as sending babies home with people,
Well, I'm asking this situation to where you run across a young lady and do you ever have your input on, listen, don't send that baby home with,
no, I don't. No,
well, you don't get to say that, but do you have a,
they usually don't end up in our program until something's happened. There's been some kind of consequence, which is
which is they take the baby right away
from the hospital.
and then she's trying to work
They
back.
usually don't get to go. They usually don't get to
Well,
take the home baby.
what a powerful person to have that's already been through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, for a young mom to go through pregnancy and then, have that baby taken away right away, and you really think you're alone.
yeah,
I mean, you're certain you're alone, right? And then you have somebody who's got sobriety now and has been through it, you know.
yeah. Um, it's hard. It's hard for me to watch sometimes, but I know that they're capable. And I know what that feels like to. Honestly, it didn't stop me. Gabriel was 13. I was still leaving him with who? What I was leaving him with Justin and Danielle as a newborn. Mom was
And Justin is
my
14 and
oldest.
Danielle's
He was 13.
10.
Yeah, Mom and Dad were coming home a little more often. A little more often. I heard this later on to make sure there was food in the house. There was no food in that. All my resources.
So you were now you were full blown.
I'm totally non-existent now. Now I'm
Yeah.
just around every now and then.
Now you're
So
a soulless walking
person.
bag of bones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Um. Um. I know the family was. I think the family they loved me. I didn't think so then, but they gathered, I guess, and had a conversation about who somebody's gonna take these kids. Who's it gonna be? And my little sister had her own troubles that she didn't like to voice. But with her own marriage or whatever. Alyssa and Ron had lived in Mom's house. They had 2 kids, so it was them. And I think
This is your older sister?
my older sister. So when Gabriel was 13 weeks old,
Did she have a family by now?
yeah, she had 2 kids, Sarah and Cameron.
Well, bless
Had
her
2 kids.
heart for what
And
she
a
had to
husband
do.
that didn't ask for none of this, But they went to court. Well, she filed. Actually, I had asked her if she'd watch the baby, and took him over there. I guess maybe she came got him. I don't remember, but I remember her. I remember, I guess, making side talk. Oh, I can't get him to eat. Should I put cereal in his milk? I knew I had to take care of my baby. But I just didn't want to. But she's like, yeah, you need to feed that boy. But Gabriel was such a puker, But anyway, she kept him for a week, and I guess they went. As my little sister called because she could minute. I was closer to her. So, hey, I'm gonna come get the kids. Can I come get the kids? Yeah, I was like, sure,
Yeah, right.
So after about a week of that, uh, I wasn't taking them to get their shots. I wasn't
Nothing.
present at all.
Right.
So all these things need to be done, and it's all building, and my family's seeing all this. So, um, I was like, sure. And after about a week or two, I think she went, like they had talked to somebody, and I'm not sure who, but they talked to somebody, and they were like, just file an emergency protective custody order. So they did that. I was told I had court, but I was told I didn't know it was in me. I don't know. My tires were all flat that morning. I swore it was my family that set me up. I was just mad.
Mhm.
How dare them take
Yeah,
my
right.
kids? Right. I mean, I realize now, thank
How
God.
long do you think when they took your kids and you said watch them, how long before you realized that they took them, you think? I know you were not
About a week.
so
Because
you
my mom was calling me, Jessica, Christine, you're losing your kids. My mom was like in that desperate mode, like, what are you doing? she didn't know what else to. She didn't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We don't have that
And you're
information.
you're like 32 here.
I'm 30. I'm 30 still. Like
You're
Gabriel
30.
was 13
Okay.
weeks old. I had him when I was 30. My
Gotcha.
birthday's in July, and his birthday was July 22nd. So yeah, I was just turned 30 when I had him. Um, so I'm right today. I thank God that they love me enough to do that. Like I did not need to have my kids, and
Right.
I was pretty pissed,
Well, yeah.
and I didn't go to court, so they automatically got them. So, I had an open child service case for 9 years. A year later, I had Kenan because I burnt my bridges at home, and uh, Gabriel's dad was dead, and Donnie went back to jail over child support. They busted him right in front of me at that trailer because we were staying there. So he went back to jail, and well, when he went back to jail, we were actually staying with a dude named Kent that lived up up some country road. But anyway, his wife had left him, I guess, because of his drug use. He was a dump. He drove a dump truck. But anyway, when Donnie went to jail that night, I was kind of stuck there, and he's like, "Well, you can just stay here, and I'll help you get your kids back." Like he was,
Mm-hmm.
"I'll help you,"
Right.
But he was a user, you know. He worked at Fort Knox. He went to work every day, but he was a user. So I stayed, and I was ended up pregnant with him. So I had my son Kenan. I tried to go to rehab a couple times. I got kicked out a couple times.
While you were pregnant.
When I got pregnant with Kenan, I was like, I have to stop.
Yeah.
And they already had Gabriel and Danielle and Justin. So my sister had 3 kids. So she still was working. She put Gabriel in daycare. Life moved on. They just took care of my kids. She was dealing with her 2 kids who had brought.
So they
They
had
brought.
5
They
total.
had 5 total. Um, but I remember getting a visit. I remember working up and staying clean long enough to get some visitation, and I had supervised at my mom's house, and then pulling in, and she was real rude and shitty. He had a no tolerance. There was not going to be anybody using drugs at his home, and it just made me mad. I don't know why he's.
Right.
It's just my whole attitude was crazy, but
Well, it's insanity.
it is insanity. It's for sure
I mean,
insanity.
all this makes like sitting here now and hearing you say this to me. Um, I'm not judging.
Right,
I'll never do that because people, we just don't know about people
right,
and everything they went through. But B, saying it out loud makes sense to a point that because it is so crazy, it now makes sense
yeah,
and that it's insanity. And now that you're able to apply that and help other people is just shows what kind of character is really in someone that we need to help bring
right,
out more
absolutely, yeah. Because
because
I try to love people before they love themselves. I have
mhm,
to hold hope for them. There is hope. They are perfectly capable. If I can do it, they can do it. Because there were no resources back then, none.
right.
You know,
This is early 2000s.
yeah,
So no resources.
right,
Um, Opioids were just coming on the scene like a storm, right?
right.
You know the
Well, they were shutting down the meth.
right,
So when they shut down the meth, they shut down when they stopped selling the pills you cook meth with. Nature finds a way.
right, yeah, right,
That's a Jurassic Park, but it's nature finds a way. People are going to find a way to get high.
yeah,
So um, my mentality back then was they're shutting down how they're making clean dope. Now they're just going to let them make dirty dope. It's going to get worse
right.
because that's what all the bikers were saying. Back
And
then.
we're back to that right now
Yeah.
because now they
Now they're
shut
doing shake and bake and
now they're shutting
and
down they're shutting down the controlled pills, and now they're making these fake ones with fentanyl
right,
and God knows what in them.
right. So it's evolving.
So it's evolving.
Because I can remember in the '80s when the airport went international in Louisville, and that's when all the cocaine started rolling in.
Mm,
See, that's because that wasn't an international airport till the '80s.
yeah,
So things have. That's just how life has evolved. And just like I was talking about, my grandparents were alcoholics, but back then they weren't considered alcoholics if they still took care of their family.
right.
That's just how dad is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had when I got pregnant with Kenan. Um, well, I went to rehab and found out they took me to a doctor and found out because they ask you all these questions. When was your last period? Blah blah blah. So, oh yeah, I haven't had one.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out I was pregnant with him, and I was probably about 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks, and they listened to his heartbeat or whatever. I guess they heard something, so they sent me downtown to a cardiologist's office to check the baby and me out, and I found out he had hypoplastic left heart syndrome,
Which is
which is basically a half a heart. His bottom left pumping chamber did not develop. was not developing.
And it's drug related 100%.
It's it happens like one in about every 100 babies there is a hypoplastic left heart. But my heart of hearts know my stopping cold turkey with the dope that I was doing then is fresh. And I mean, I was doing a lot of dope. I was doing a lot of dope. It has to contribute, you know.
So as soon as you found out you were pregnant at rehab is when you stopped.
I stopped before I went to rehab, but I'm sure I was still probably dirty when I went in there. So
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's is a screeching halt, you know, type thing. So,
Hmm.
um,
And early development on a baby, as I know, is the heart first.
yeah,
So you were
yeah. He was a sick. He was, and they, you know, I started going through this whirlwind of how sick this baby was going to be. I didn't have custody, so had worked. I was almost a year clean. Oh, I was getting close to a year clean. CPS was ready to give me the other three back. Now I stopped using, so
before
I
you
had to have
had.
been still fooling them because I was working to get these other three back. So I had to have still been fooling them in some
I
way.
got you because of 9 months. I,
Yeah,
I understand.
they weren't busting out drug tests back then like they are now. It's like, oh, it's so expensive. You know, they just drug
Right.
test
If you
you.
could prove that you had a stable home and that
Right.
everything looked normal, then
Right. I mean, I took a drug test here and there, but it wasn't like regularly drug tested
right.
like now. So I paved the way for everybody to get drug tested
You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody in family and drug court.
now. Right.
That's why they had to get up and call and wait
Yeah.
on their. Okay.
Yeah. So I had Kenan on September 12th of 2001. So that put him and Gabriel a year apart. So that's what a
Day
lot
after
happened in a year.
9/11.
Day after 9/11. Remember when the bills were filed? I was sitting at the doctor's office the day before. I had a doctor's appointment the day before. I lived way out and almost to Brett. I was like on the Brett County, Meade County line. They did not want me to go in labor. I was my fourth child. They did not want me to go in labor out there with this sick baby. So we had to plan for the day they were going to come and take him C-section. So uh, I went and saw him on the 11th, and he was like, "Let's do it tomorrow morning." So it's just I don't know why they picked that day, but so I went home and I was supposed to be back there at 6 a.m. That was the day. It was the day the buildings fell. It was the next morning. So I had Kenan. We named him Kenan. It means little Kent. So because his dad's name was Kent Greenwell.
Right.
So
Where is Kent? I mean, is he
Kent,
supportive of your
he,
sobriety, or are you still living with him?
we were together off and on.
No,
He
that's
left me.
it.
No,
Yeah, that's an
no.
answer.
But he's had Kenan he's had Kenan off and on, but he's not in his life right now. He doesn't ever text him or anything. He's alcohol. He's uh been raised to feel like he's better than everybody else, and that he doesn't. They brush everything under the rug in his family pretty much.
Yeah,
So
he would never sit across from me and tell his story to
oh
help others.
no, because he don't have nothing wrong with him.
That's right. I
So
understand.
anyway, yeah, I had Kenan, and he was in the hospital for 5 weeks. So CPS didn't want to give me the other three back until Kenan was out of the hospital. So which put us around end of October. I brought him home. I got the kids back December 17th that year with no resources. Kent was still using. I had a home though.
And you were sober.
I was already dabbling back in it.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was pretty mad. She had to. She was pretty upset.
She had him for
At this point, it was like 17 months.
okay,
Gabriel was like 17 months old.
year and a half.
His grandma and grandpa lived like across the street. It's the same country road, but they lived like diagonally across from Kent. They knew Kent. Donnie, Pud, and Kent grew up together. They all knew each other. So there's my dynamic. All the
Gotcha.
guys knew each other. I had
Mhm.
babies by
All
well,
three,
except for the one I'm married to.
except for
He
Donnie.
kept getting out of jail, and I had another kid. You know.
Right.
But he was my best friend. He's always been my best friend. I knew his heart. He knew my heart. We were clean and sober together both. I don't know why it's working because it usually doesn't work with people like that, with a dynamic like that, but it has. Um, Kenan was pretty sick though. It was like when I took him home from the hospital, it was like you can't let him get it. He turns blue because his red and blue blood at that point. They had to do 3 procedures on him, which was 3 open heart surgeries. He had his first one at 6 days old. Open heart surgery. They reconstructed his heart
Mm-hmm.
for 8 hours.
Man.
Tiny little heart. So he was a little miracle. And but Kent was around, so I was doing a line here and there. I wasn't like really using, but it was like he came in. I was like, I knew he had it, type
Mm-hmm.
thing. So anyway, it was like, don't let him get upset. You can't let him cry a lot. I had keeping things clean. He could get RSV. It was
Intense.
intense. So they gave me the other three kids back, and it just at that point Justin was a teenager. He was almost 16.
16.
And he had a lot of needs, and Danielle had wanted her mama the entire time. Um, it was stressful. It was so stressful. It's stress. I started using pretty heavy, and I guess Kenan was probably. I remember it was New Year's Eve, and he started getting real sick. Like he couldn't breathe. I could tell he was struggling to breathe. And I finally talked Kenton into taking him to the hospital, and I drove him to the hospital like at 95 mile an hour, and I got him there his oxygen. Now, a hypoplastic left heart lives with a lower oxygen level than a normal person, so he was living at about 65 out of our 100%
Wow.
at that point. The doctor was like, "Put a straw in your mouth, trying to breathe." That's how he's living right now. Until they could do the other, he had to weigh so much before they could do the other
Right.
surgeries. So it was a process. So I took him to the hospital, and they intubated him immediately, pushed me out of the room, and he was on life support for 8 weeks. They he coded like 4 times during that period of time. I checked out.
Yeah.
I checked out. I was never at the hospital. Either I didn't have a ride. I was high. Nobody would take me. Mom, dad would show up there. My older sister would show up there, and the nurses. They said the nurses would tell him, "We all clip his fingernails because that's considered surgery, and us nurses can't do that." So I was completely checked out by that point. So it was too much. It was too much. So um, I lost by May. I lost all of them again. I know. I think the cops. Somebody called the cops. Somebody was at our house. I think it was Kent's stepmom, dad came over, and somebody was at the house that they knew was no good, and they called the cops. Said, "What do I do? We own that land." Blah blah blah. So the cops came in and they took the kids again, and Kent denied everything. I don't know what she's doing, type
Right.
thing. They made him go pee too, and he diluted it. They were like, "You can't put water in your drug test, Kent." So it was just a whirlwind. We ended up getting indicted. I took a possession charge. They charged us with like manufacturing meth because this guy that was at the house. Apparently, they busted him for manufacturing meth or whatever. But it was just a whirlwind. Like all those, everything just kind of melts together at that point because now I've lost my kids twice. So I got sober for a little while. I did the right thing and got sober. I built up my visitations. I hated my sister. You know, but within a few years, I started going to the bar every now and then because me and Kent couldn't see each other. So he was living back with his mom, and I was living back with my mom, and he was at the bar after work. So that's where I ended up started going over to the bar to see him, show him pictures of the baby because I wanted him to be a dad.
Right.
I wanted this illusion of this family that we were going to get all these kids back
And this
or
is when you
whatever.
were sober.
Part of it I was sober. Yeah, I started drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So
There it
that's when the
is.
drinking kind of fell
Right.
in. And so during this period of time, I was clean and sober. I was drinking, and they didn't test for that either then. So I'm building my life back a little bit at a time. I got that trailer still. Mom, dad, the house was built, so I had that trailer, a place to take the kids, whatever. Um, Over that period of time, I was visiting Ken, and we were getting him unsupervised like on every other weekend. My sister was dropping him off. And then I think the drinking came into play then. And I had to start doing breathalyzer in order for me to get. They told me, okay, so you can go to their house and visit them.
Right.
But Ron, my brother in law, bought a breathalyzer and he wouldn't let me get in the car before I blew in the breathalyzer thing. So, holding me accountable. And he was always the one that would hold me accountable. So, thank God for him sometimes. But uh, I gave up after a little while. And, like, it started going through my mind, should I leave these kids with her? Like, they've built a family. Like, this point, Gabriel and Kenan are 4, 5. So I met a lady named Margaret Matney. I wanted my kids back. I gave her like $200 down, and she said, "Never forget these are your children." And it's like I keep coming back for my kid.
Right.
I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there. I didn't have what I have now.
Right.
I didn't have those resources. I didn't have a program. I didn't have. It was like go to AA. There'd be like
Right.
two 80-year-old men there drinking coffee, doing a book study. I
Right.
didn't get it.
Yes.
So in 2006, let's just fast forward because I paid an attorney. It was a huge trial in Meade County. My sister had already been given permanent custody. They lawyered up. Me and Kent had split up. He left me for some other woman. She was super controlling. They lawyered up. The Gabriel's grandparents, he didn't have a dad, so his grandparents lawyered up because they got Gabriel. They got grandparents' rights, so they were getting him every other weekend this whole time. I was seeing him with them, too. So I lawyered up. Everybody had lawyers. So every lawyer in Meade County was taken up. Every one of them. And Uh, in Kentucky, they always want parents to have their children if it's at all possible. So 6 days or 7 days of trial, but it was so scattered out that it was like one Saturday and then maybe one Tuesday evening. 2 weeks later, it'd be another day. But we had a trial, and I was doing everything I was supposed to do. So at the end of that trial, I was like, "We'll let you know." 2 months later, I'm at work at Fort Knox. I worked for the housing. I had a good job too. I was making good money. I was drinking. I was drinking coming through the Fort Knox gates every morning. I would drink. I was drinking whiskey. I'd drink enough, leave enough to make me a drink that morning to drive into work. So I mean, I could drink. I worked with 46 guys, the maintenance, and I could drink every one of them under the table. That's how it progressed over the time period that I
Right.
was trying to get my kids back. So July, I think it was July 6th of 2006. It's 2006. I got my kids back. Um, they told me to meet my sister down at CPS and she would hand them over. My sister was devastated. Gabriel was 6, Kenan was 5, and it was a big deal in my family. But she was like, they were calling, wanting to know if I'd wait a day or two so she could prepare the kids. I mean, they took these kids on family vacations.
They were family.
Yeah, they had 2 babies. Ron would play the guitar when they were in the tub. Like these boys have memory. They was grieved. They and I did take them back, and they grieved for these. They grieved for them. So I knew this. My heart was telling me you need to leave those boys there. And I even had a conversation with them at some point about them adopting them and just letting the 2 boys stay there, the younger ones. Justin at this point had graduated high school and went in the army.
Mm.
My oldest. So he was in the army by that point. Danielle was almost 16. Got him back, got them all back, and that's what society and family, Gabriel's family, they pushed me a lot. You need to get them back. Need to get them back. Even though my heart was telling me something else. But I worked at Fort Knox. I worked a lot of overtime. Danielle kind of became the mom. She was cooking dinner for the boys, helping them get on the bus, whatever, you
Did she
know.
know you were drinking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she knew. And that progressed to well, my dad, and mom didn't want nothing to do with me after that trial. So, I say that, but we weren't talking. I think it was probably my choice because dad got on the stand and was like, "Well, when I'm dead, she'll be using somebody else for a crutch." He wanted the kids to stay with her. My mom thought I needed to get them back. There's that abandonment issue with my mom.
Right.
So, um, I got them back, and I had already been drinking. So that progressed over a little bit of time. 2006 leads to I'm working whatever. I had a flood where I lived because Gabriel's parents had bought a house, or Gabriel's grandparents had bought a house for me to live in near them, real convenient. And my mom always said it was that they thought it would be. She goes, Jessica, they only want you to get him back because they know it'd be easier for you to take him, for them to take him from you, and rather than Melissa. Like that's how my mom felt. She's like, they want to take this baby from you. That family does, and it'll be easier if they can take him from you,
Right.
which makes sense now to
Yeah.
me. But I still love his grandparents were wonderful people. Um, so I moved. My dad gets a trailer. He helps me finance a trailer, a bigger trailer, a nicer trailer, and take that old one out, and we put a new one in right there on their farm. And so I lived there for a couple years. And my dad told me he was proud of me, and my dad told me we went out to eat. I was functioning. I was drinking, but I was functioning. I was a functioning drunk. Um, Working, whatever. And then my dad died, massive heart attack. I'm the one that I found him, and it just exacerbated the drinking.
Mm.
I was drinking probably a liter a day. I was probably, I mean, it was maybe more. I was getting a gallon for the weekend because I didn't want to run out and have to because they didn't sell liquor on Sunday down there. I went to drive to the pink liquor store on Dixie Highway. So it was pretty bad. There's people that's like, man, I never even knew you were drinking. I was that sober drunk. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But my daughter um, probably was affected the most that I know of because we'd have a long weekend, holiday weekend or whatever at work, where I'd be off Monday or whatever, and I would try to quit. And I remember her putting cold washcloth. I was throwing up. My eyes were turning yellow. I remember looking in the mirror thinking, I'm dying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna die. This is gonna kill me. And I didn't know how to quit. I didn't know how to stop. And one day, my little sister walked down the trailer, and I looked at her and I said, "I'm so tired of this. I just wish somebody would take the kids. Don't take them away from me." And I think that's why I didn't ask for help before then because I was scared of losing them again. But I was starting to not be present. You know, I'd stop at the liquor store on the way home from work, get a liter at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and be in bed by 9, and had drank almost that whole liter. That's a lot of whiskey. So, you know, and I remember like Monday, Tuesday morning, or what, my daughter had a baby. She turned 18, had a baby. I remember her coming through the door and seeing a straw. When she saw a straw in my cup, she knew I was drinking whiskey. You know, she'd be like, "Really, mom? After the whole weekend we just went through, now you're drinking. You know,
Yeah,
you're
right.
drinking. Really? You know?"
Yeah.
She'd be so pissed.
You were dying.
I was dying. She
You
was watching me die. You
yeah.
know, and back with the first time when my sister and them when they took my kids, the first time my kids were removed, my sister told me later down the road, years later, because we didn't talk. She said, "Jessica, we thought you were dying. Like we knew. It's like when we left that courtroom that day, it was like we went to your funeral. You were gray. You were horrible looking. You know, it was just like that picture has stayed in her mind all these years. But so I didn't quit. And uh, but that day when my little sister came down, I was like, I just need to go somewhere. Like I just need a minute, like 30 days. Give me 30 days. Just I need to get off. I knew I couldn't do it alone. I guess. So I went to Lincoln Trail. They sent me to the hospital first. My alcohol level was so high they couldn't just take me to rehab. So they told my sister, um, get her to the hospital, and when she gets out, don't take her anywhere else. Bring her straight here. So I stayed there. I did their program there, completed it, and started drinking again. After like 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, I was drinking again. So at this point, the kids are, Danielle's grown, the boys are older, but during that time period, uh, Kent and his dad found out, which the other
Mhm.
grandparents found out. I kind of had to hand them over.
Okay.
So lead up to a couple more years of drinking. I get back with Donnie. I get back on meth, and I land in jail. So now I'm going to prison because they bust us for manufacturing meth
Again.
again.
Okay.
So it's my second, which that one was real because we were doing it.
Right.
So a lot of stuff happened in between that, but it was just basic trouble you get into. You know, we were in a spiral together. His mom died within that period of time, and then we was really in a spiral. So he took a 38-year sentence, and I kind of knew in my mind this is what's going to get me clean sober. Like
You
I
do.
remember when they locked me up, when they busted me, he ran like he jumped out of the truck and ran. It was like a 90-mile high speed chase. It was a whole lot, but he ran for 5 weeks. They caught him. But I remember when I got locked up, I was like, all right, I'm getting busted for manufacturing meth. I'm gonna get a 10 year. I knew what the norm was for that. I'm
Mhm.
gonna get a 10-year sentence. I'm gonna do 2 years in prison, and I'm gonna work on me, and I'm gonna get this right this time. Like that was
And
what
you
was in
knew
my
it.
mind.
And
Oh
what
yeah,
year was this?
this was 2013.
Okay.
So I went to Pee Wee Valley. I took the man. I just took it. He got 38 years because they stacked his stuff because he'd been locked up so much, and he got in a manufacturing when I was with Kent. He'd gotten a manufacturing meth
Mhm.
charge. Somebody set him up. It was gun enhanced. So this time he wasn't getting out of it. Like
Right.
so, we had two charges in two counties. One was in me. One was in Breck. Uh, Long story short, he got
So
38 years.
when you got to prison, and you never served any time before this, no serious
Like
time.
5 or 6 months maybe.
Oh, so you had before.
For the possession charge I got. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
did like
you
5 or 6 months in jail. Mom, and Dad bailed me out. That was
mhm.
when I was with Kent. We
Gotcha.
had to separate. We had curfews and
So
stuff.
when you went to prison, and it was you had to serve 10 years. You knew that. So
No, in Kentucky, I knew that in Kentucky, if you got a Class D felony, you did like 15% of your sentence.
right,
So a 5 year sentence, you'll do 9 months in jail, and they'll make parole. But they were starting to do the SAP thing, the substance abuse program thing.
right,
So I knew you would have to do a substance abuse program because like a lot of people would they'd get out on parole for after 9 months on a 5 year sentence, and they would have to go to a SAP like dismiss house or somewhere and do a program. Then they were out on parole. So I was like, all right, so I'm gonna get locked up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do SAP. I'm gonna do a SAP program while I'm locked up. So when I get out, I won't have to do anything. You know, I
so
was like, that
you
was my
stayed clean
mentality.
and sober, and you just knew that was the bottom line.
I remember when they locked me, when they put the cuffs on me, I was like, can I smoke a cigarette? And the cop was like, I just chased you for 8 miles down these old country roads and you could have killed anybody. Hell no, you can't smoke a cigarette. Get
Yeah,
in the car. And I remember landing in the cop car, and there was a guy doing a ride along. It was an ambulance, a dude that drove an ambulance that picked up Donnie's mom actually. And he was like, he looked back, he goes, "We were only gonna pull y'all over because you didn't have no tail lights." I was like, "Oh shit," yeah.
yeah, right.
But I was in cuffs, whatever. But I remember relief. I remember feeling like I knew I was in a spiral when I was in the spiral. I knew had enough recovery in me. I knew where I was,
Yeah.
at what point I was in that point, and I knew my kids were okay because she had them,
Right.
and I knew I just but the boys got split up that time, so these two boys went 4 years, 5 years with really no connection. They
They went
they
back to Kent's family.
Kenan went to Kent and Gabriel went to their grandparents. My sister
Mm.
didn't get them.
Mm.
Danielle had a baby and was in a horrible relationship herself, and then my son was in the army. So see how things and remember how my heart felt about I should leave him with her.
Yeah.
So I still feel that way. I still
Right.
feel that way.
Hmm.
Hindsight, I would have just left him with her. You
Well,
know.
well, let's talk success because I
Okay.
mean that's a lot of trauma
Yeah.
and a lot of self-induced, right? Because that's what addicts
Absolutely.
do.
That's what we do.
But I want to hear today. What does today look like for you?
Today, after I got out of my own way,
Yes.
um, life is great. I'm happy. Oh, I wake up every day. I'm happy. I have all my kids in my life. I had to work for it. The boys weren't happy when I got out of prison. I did counseling with him. Gabriel wasn't ready. It was months before he was ready, but he finally did come around, and we still process things today. And Kenan had to go back to was with his dad for years, but at 16, his dad got divorced after I was out of prison and moved back this way with my mom. I sold the farm, and my mom had cancer, so we moved back this way. While I was in prison, she got cancer. We moved her back this way so she could be with everybody. And Kenan's dad called me. I became his best friend again. He was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. She's divorcing me. Blah blah blah. I was like, I don't know what you're gonna do either, but he can come stay with me. So when Kenan graduated 8th grade, that's just how the universe works. He came and lived back. He came back to me. Came back.
Hmm.
He hadn't seen our family in years. Like they cut my whole family out. So that was huge. Gabriel graduated high school, and he's like, I got my stuff packed at graduation night. He was like, I have my stuff packed at grandma's. We want to just back up to the front door and we'll get it. He was already. He's like checkout time, and
Right.
so they came home, and they do
Wow.
come home, and um, I'm I'm honored that they still call me mom. They call my sister mom. They call me mom. I'm okay with that now. I wasn't okay with that years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
How dare them call her mom?
Right.
She earned it.
Right.
She still earns it.
Mm.
If they need something, they either call me or her. We make sure we. The biggest thing in our family that we figured out was the lack of communication between everybody. So now today we all communicate. We all make sure we know what's going on with the boys. And they're
And
Ron's kids, they're her kids, they're my kids. They're
so
you
from the
know
day you walked in the prison, you've been sober since
I sure have.
2013. You're going
Absolutely.
on 9 years. Going on 10 years.
Yeah, I'll be. June 22nd was the day I got locked up. So June, I was released June 1st. So of
Nine, so you
2015.
got 9 years. You're going on 10.
Yeah, I'm in my 10th year. Yeah,
That is amazing. And
yeah.
you have
Never.
grandkids now.
I have my daughter's getting ready to have my seventh in September.
Seventh. So explain those grandkids because this is awesome. So
Yeah.
who has what kid?
Okay, Justin has two.
Justin is the one that caught the house on fire
Yeah, I went in the army.
and went
He
no.
bugged out on everybody. He's like, I'm just going in the army. And he still lives. He was stationed in Alaska, which was pretty cool for a while.
Yeah.
And he did 3 tours. He's out of the army now. He was working for AT&T, but he just quit because he decided he wanted to do a Harley Davidson school. His kids are old enough now and in school, and they're divorced. They just got divorced like last year. So, but they co-parent, and so he's doing something for himself now, and he's gonna go to Arizona next month and do Harley Davidson mechanic
Cool.
school. So that's what he wants to do.
So he's got 2 of the grandkids. Explain the others.
The
Danielle
others
got
are,
pregnant at 18.
Danielle got pregnant at 18. That dad's never been around. She got pregnant again. Let's see, Rosie is 6. So Emma's going to be 12 this next weekend. She's the whole reason why I got through prison, looking at her picture every day, thinking I'm going to be a grandma and I'm gonna do this. Because when I was locked up, I didn't know where in the world Danielle was. She was in a bad relationship. I didn't know where my daughter was. I didn't know if she
It's
was,
hard.
and she was living in a trailer with no electric. My mom saved her many times, but he hit her. He threw her downstairs. He
Kind of what she saw you go through, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And how many
it's that chain that we can't break,
that we can change. We can
did.
change it.
And we did. She's clean and sober now.
Wow.
She's been sober for I don't even know how many years now since Rosie was born.
6.
Yeah, 6. So
So she has 2.
she has getting ready to be 5.
So she's got the
She's the
rest of.
one. So during my sobriety, after I got out of prison and moved mom home, mom lived with me for a while. Danielle went to dismiss. She was locked up when I got out of prison, pregnant. So when we took her to dismiss, she was pregnant. I was like, okay, so how does this work when she has the baby? She comes back here, and they're like, no. When she has the baby, you bring her back here, and somebody else to take the baby. I'm a felon. They're not letting me take a baby. So my mom took the baby.
Stepped up.
So me and my mom took care of this baby until she was 8 weeks old. There's that abandonment thing again.
Well, just how powerful is that though? That you got the opportunity to be the person that you needed
Yeah.
at the time, and you already had the background of what Danielle felt like she was going through. Wow.
Yeah, because there was a whole lot of that. Look what you did. Why are you mad at me for doing it? Because look at everything you did, type thing. So there's a whole lot of that shame and that resentment and that all that stuff plays into this family dynamic, you know. And there's my mom with the abandonment. I had to bring the baby home from the hospital because my mom could not do it. I cannot take that baby from her. You know, you have to.
Yeah,
You
right.
just have to do this. But my mom, one boob and one not boob, because she had breast cancer. She sat and held that. I'm like, you want me to take her? No, no, she's just not settled. Mom was in the middle of her cancer battle, and we got 3 good more years out of her. And Rosie, I believe, is what kept her alive.
Right.
She had to do this. She had to take care of that baby for Danielle. She had to be there, you know, because Danielle's her granddaughter. Grandkids are a whole different dynamic.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
it is amazing. It's amazing. So, mom moved out. Danielle moved in, and she got with another guy that was a really good manipulator. She wasn't.
Well, I also have to ask this: is it because I remember Stacy basically doing everything by herself at the Reach program, and that's what it felt like to me when I first got in
She
it.
does.
Well, right. Well, she does, but now she's starting to surround herself with some people, and then she's like, all of a sudden, everybody, here's Jessica. She's your superior. So, explain how long have you been with the Reach
Okay.
program?
So let me tell you that in 2015, I met her because they sent me when I moved back up here. They sent me to I was supposed to do aftercare.
Mm-hmm.
They sent me to Communicare in Meade County. I had a parole officer all the way to E Town. Meade County doesn't have anything,
Right.
so it was like okay. So I go to Communicare. They're like, I don't know what to do with you. Well, when mom moved up here, I went back to Communicare, and my parole officer was like, I know somebody better.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to go see this lady. She was still at Communicare, 7 counties, whatever it was then.
Mm-hmm.
She was moving over. So she was like, I cannot tell you to come to this office, but you know how she does. I cannot confirm or deny where you need to go, but I'm going over here.
Yeah.
So I was in.
Yeah.
I was totally in.
Well, we were in the first time we met Stacy. Well,
oh, yeah.
Not talking to her on the phone doing the admission stuff, but after
Yeah.
that.
Since 2015, I've been with her, and I can't remember not one group that I've ever not been totally intrigued the entire time I was in that group.
Right. Same.
Like, we think that we're going to go to this crappy group and we're going to be so
Look at a
bored.
DUI video and watch it and be like, drugs are bad, okay? And it's like 90% of it is not even drugs.
Right.
It's family dynamics. It's the shame, the lens in which you see yourself.
Putting our foundation down
But-
so that we can build a life.
Right.
You know, I don't think about drugs and alcohol anymore. I do because I'm living it with, that's my job now, but I don't think about when I pass liquor stores. I don't, but I don't try to psychoanalyze people. I know that there is hope. I can't even explain sometimes what I take from it. Even with Eric, and I sit through ILP a lot.
He was great.
He can break it. He breaks it down, and Stacy builds it all out. Like it's like both of their perspectives are just as awesome to
Yes.
me, But if you want her to put something right out there for you,
Right.
in 30 minutes, she can do it.
Yeah, and she can read you like a book.
Oh yeah.
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 So,
And she's taught me a lot. But I've been mentoring for her probably since because I came to her clean sober, been clean sober for a couple years.
yeah, you said
So-
2013, and it's now
Uh-huh.
2015. You met her, and then you
Yeah.
followed her. So you already had 2 years sobriety before you even met her.
Yeah.
But man, what it excelled. You talking about things progressing, meeting her and understanding, what caused your resentments, what caused the way you thought about family dynamic and how the
Absolutely.
chain evolved, she sent you to a whole new level. And
Absolutely.
not just her, you did yourself.
Yeah.
But buying into understanding what she kind of breaks down to you, that's what I think people need to realize is like, oh, she's giving one of those again, but it's not. It's just, I mean, it's not the normal group.
Right.
It
Not at
it
all.
saves lives. So I want people to understand that the Reach program is real. It's a it's an understanding. We always say one tribe,
Absolutely.
and everybody comes together. And the main thing, you're not alone, and you got to know that you're worth it. And there's so many of us out there that think they're alone when they're going through something. I don't care if it's anger management. I don't care if it's abusive relationship, um, domestic violence, uh, cutters,
Yeah.
teens. She works a ton with teens,
Absolutely. She does.
the
Yeah.
schools. You do too.
All of our kids, all of us want her to see our children
Uh,
because there's
they,
that dynamic.
absolutely.
My daughter was kind of grandfathered into the program. She just came along, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what your insurance is. It doesn't matter. Like she doesn't say no to anybody.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, and she's created a culture that it's not like that, and it's the safest place I've ever felt in my life,
Absolutely.
and that's why I try to.
I've never met anybody that is a therapist that is so involved with her people and that is so involved with and has so much love for us to the point where you feel like it's such a family that um, you can walk into a lot of places and they're sitting behind the desk and they got other people doing their classes and they have other people.
I
You know,
remember going to DUI class when I was going through my stuff. When I was 22 and got my first DUI, I remember them just lining up at the door before you go in because he's handing everybody receipts.
yeah,
I remember that. And you
Yeah.
sit in the classroom and you're just like, you gotta be kidding me. So she does DUI classes, but it's part of men's group. You get that for the what?
and Wednesday here in Bardstown,
You see what I'm saying? And it's
it's
class,
everybody kind of mixed up together, and we all
and that's what makes it the best.
yeah. I know DUI. There's some of her DUI people that just was doing DUI class that still come to
They still
Bardstown.
come,
Handful of them,
right?
that
Not
we
necessarily.
see on a
Might
regular
have just
basis.
been in a bad situation. Might not be an alcoholic, right?
Right.
They just understand the value that it brings them as a person and as a
Absolutely.
human being
Everything
to
you
the
absorb,
community.
you can take home and put it to use.
Well,
Absolutely.
we love you, Stacy, obviously, but Jessica, you're a big part of who Stacy is, and I know she would say it too. And thank you so much for being open and honest and sharing everything and laying your heart on the table. I'm sure there's a lot of war stories in between there that you missed,
Oh yeah.
but I want you to understand that I really think it's going to help people. It's helped me, I know, already just sitting here listening to you, and I already feel closer to you.
Oh,
So, I thank you very much, and I know there's somebody out there that needs to hear it, and that's the whole reason why we do it. So, thank you.
you're very welcome. It's an honor to be here. I just love you to death, man. You're like such a big part of our program too, and you're a part of the family.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
and
that's a family you can't get rid of. That's what we always
absolutely,
say.
it's never gonna get rid of me. I can tell you that. It's not happening.
Well, I
'Cause I
appreciate.
can't have anything else. I can't have grandkids and kids me and my sister are best friends now. She's my best friend. We go to the gym together. You know, we're trying not to die like how my dad died. Like
Right.
my little sister died last year, so we're so connected now. Like our family is so connected in so many good ways, and it could have went completely different.
Could have.
So she's kind of part of us too. My sister's been with me to speak. My sister and Gabriel have been to parole office. It was a meeting we had parole CPS workers. It was in Davis County, or I can't remember exactly where it was, but they went with me and told their view of what it was like dealing with me.
Wow.
So it was very powerful. It was huge. So
That's amazing.
there's an idea for you.
Yeah, it is because we always hear the addict side, and
Yeah.
we're not making excuses. We just want to identify certain things to make us better to continue on and have our sobriety. But hearing who we impacted, how and why, wow.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate it, and Keegan, thank you for running over here. And
appreciate you.
that's it. And contact the Reach program. There's many ways. We'll put it up on everything we have so you can understand just how it can change your life. Thank you.
Thank you.